Hi, and welcome to this episode of Little Sprout Speech TV. Speech TV. Grab your pen and paper because today we are talking about asking a friend to play. And I'll give you a little secret. I made this video when I was 38 weeks pregnant because I didn't know when the little girl would join us. So I decided that instead of skipping a week, I wanted to make sure that you guys had this since we've been talking a lot about sharing and playing with friends. So I'm going to give you 3 tips on asking a friend to play, and we'll go from there. So tip number 1. Just like last week and just like we've been talking about a lot when it comes to sharing and other topics on our Facebook page, we want to make sure that your child is ready to play with other kids, right? We want to make sure they want to play with other kids, because if your child's not ready, it's not going to help for us to try and force them, right? You never want to force them to do anything. So keep that in mind. You want to keep exposing them to it, take them to the playground, let them see other kids playing, and they'll show you they're interested, especially if your kiddo is the one who's sitting there watching the other kids from the other side of the playground, not quite sure how to get into that play situation, and you're sitting there with a broken heart because they want to play, but they don't know how. So if that's where you're feeling, then it's time to start working on it, okay? And that's what you're seeing, essentially. Tip number two, if your child is ready, like we just covered, then I want you to begin by having them go over to another child with your help and saying, hi. That's it. If the other child says hi back, then your child might say, what's your name? Or want to play? And see how the other child responds, and then you can help facilitate that. Now, if your child's younger, this is much easier because little kids are more receptive to it. If your child is older, they might not want you really in their space, helping them. And at that point, if that happens, then I'm gonna recommend that you find a local speech pathologist who runs a social skills group. We're not going to get into what social skills are and the definition and all that other stuff, but basically they're going to work on these kinds of things in that group in a safe place with other children who also need to work on it. So it's a great thing if your child is ready to enroll them in, and you can do it in preschool, you can do it in kindergarten. It doesn't have to be when they're 10, 11, 12, 15. You can do it really young and keep it going as long as necessary. So that's tip number 2. Tip number 3 is if you have a child who has an obsession, okay, and an obsession could be something like Thomas the Tank Engine, Elmo, Octonauts, it might be computers, gaming, I'm trying to, comic books like Comic-Con, those kinds of things. Whatever your child's obsession may be, we're going to use that to our advantage, okay? So you can do this with a little kiddo, you could do this with a teenager, it doesn't matter. I want you to take that obsession and I want you to help your child essentially do this for your child. You're going to find other children that go to their school, and maybe if your child's in 1st grade, some of these kids may be in 3rd or 4th grade, that's okay. I don't want you to put a 1st grader with a teenager, but they don't have to be the exact same age is what I'm saying here. I want you to create a little club or a little group, kind of like they do in high school and at some of these other levels. And what you're going to do with this group is you're going to center it around that obsession that your child has that these other children share. Because if everybody's into the same thing, that already gives you something to come together on, right? The togetherness. And every child needs to belong to something. And essentially, if we can do that, then it makes it a lot easier to work on these other skills, like asking a friend to play, or hey, you want to come over later and play video games? That's going to be much easier and much more natural to begin and then to continue, and it'll become more natural for them over time if it's centered around that obsession or that shared like or interest. So that is tip number 3. So let's review our 3 tips for today. Tip number 1, as always, or not as always, but as we've been saying lately, we want to make sure that your child is ready, right? Tip number 2, If they're ready, you can start by kind of interjecting and helping them or putting them into a social skills group. And tip number 3 is to create a club or some kind of, weekly get together, even if it's at your house, that is centered around your child's obsession that other children also share. I look forward to talking to you guys, hopefully same time next week. We'll be at 40 weeks, and I'm not sure if the little girl will be here yet since I'm making this video for you all ahead of time. But I'll keep you posted, and hopefully I'll talk to you guys same time, same place next week. This is Hallie Balkin signing off.